Be strong.
Join the She Trucking Foundation today and be a part of a supportive community of women in the trucking industry. Unlock exclusive access to valuable resources, including mentorship, educational workshops, and networking opportunities. Whether you're an experienced professional or just starting your trucking journey, She Trucking is here to empower you and help you thrive. Visit www.shetrucking.com to join us and drive your trucking career to new heights.
Welcome to the Enjoyjng Life podcast. We are with the She Trucking Foundation, and I cannot wait for you to hear our guest today. We have so many great things to cover. Today, I'm going to put a broker in the hot seat. So I'm looking forward to that. You know, the market is tough right now, and drivers and carriers are struggling a lot. And I really think it's a great opportunity for us to hear from a broker and get some information about the best ways to succeed. And she can have some great tips for us. So if you have questions, be sure to pop those into the comments. Share this out so people can join us and hear our discussion. I also love that she's a carrier, so she's got experience on both sides of the table, and it's going to be a fabulous conversation. You know, my show is Enjoyjng Life OTR, and I care a lot about work-life balance. And I've been saying this a lot these last few months. You know, this year in trucking has been rough, especially for owner-operators. But even those of you that are carriers, you know, we're having some stress about maybe not getting enough miles. And we really just got to work smart these days. You know, trucking is very cyclical, you know, so we have our up times and we have times where, you know, we're all rolling in the money. And then there's times where we're really having to buckle down and be careful. And it feels a little bit more you know, the industry feels a little bit more insecure. And I think we're kind of in one of those times now. So I wanted just to make the opportunity to talk to somebody who's on the broker side and ask her some questions about maybe there's some ways that we can do things better as carriers and build those relationships, and just take the opportunity to learn from somebody with experience on both sides of the table. So I have the honor of welcoming my guest today. Her name is Elizabeth Long. She is a broker, like I said, and a carrier, and I've run freight for them in their brokerage. It's Patriot Star, and she is somebody that I consider to be a real trusted resource in the industry. She and her husband both have been acted like mentors to me, really. And anytime I have a question about the industry or how things are going or something that's happening with my paperwork and contracts or something that's just feeling a little bit uncomfortable to me, I know that I can go to her and ask her as a trusted resource, and she's going to give me factual information. So I'm really honored to have her on the show. So if you could join me welcoming Elizabeth Long.
Thank you for having me on today, Cindy.
Elizabeth, you know I'm a big fan of yours. I love the work that you do. You're one of my favorite brokers. I tell you that all the time, and I really have enjoyed working with you professionally. But even as a friend, I think you have a lot to offer. You know, at She Trucking, we care a lot about equipping, empowering women to thrive in this industry and to make the most of the opportunities that are presented to us in freight. So I've been looking forward to sharing them with you with them and getting them to meet you and hear from your perspective. Can you start out and just share us a little about your career and how you started in the industry, and then what's your role in the industry today?
Absolutely. And I do want to tell you too, the feeling is mutual. I love working with you. You are one of my favorite carriers to work with for so many reasons, we'll probably get into later. So the way I got started in the industry, to be honest, I never thought I would be in transportation, trucking, logistics. I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be a part of this. But I met my husband, Kenny Long, and we got married, and he had a CDL and owned a truck, and he'd been driving for probably about 15 years when we'd met. And he taught me how to drive. And I'd ridden in the truck with him for a little bit before he taught me how to drive. And then I went and got my CDL, and was fortunate to do that before you had to go to school, and was able to just get on the job training with him. And
let me hop in there real quick. What did you do before this? Like what?
So yeah, that's a great question. So I did a lot of sales. I did car sales. I worked in a bank. But actually I spent a lot of my younger years, I mean, maybe 10 to 15 years in the restaurant business. And the restaurant business is another job where it's customer service oriented, and you've got to think on your feet and you're on the go, So I don't know. I think restaurant business is really good training for any career, to be honest.
I agree.
So I enjoyed that, but I love what I do now. So Kenny taught me how to drive, and we actually teamed for quite a few years, just the two of us. And we had the opportunity to see all 50 states now. Unfortunately, we didn't see Hawaii and Alaska in the truck, but we've seen all 50 states now. And the good part of that is due to trucking. So I guess I've had my CDL since 2012, and I don't know how many miles I have, but accident-free, which is fantastic. And
congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. And I've had a great time traveling with Kenny. So.
Well, we're going to talk about your team driving with Kenny toward the end of the show, but I kind of want to pick your brain about what your primary role in the industry is right now. Can you tell our audience about switching?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started our carrier in 2012, and that's when Kenny and I were driving together. And then over the years, we had started to accrue some of our own customers. And these were customers that we had met through friends, family members who might have referred us, or even just, someone sees us, locally, and they wanted to work with us. And so we had started to accrue. Oh, and actually one of our biggest customers came to us through another truck driver who was working with a customer, and they needed help in the Central Florida area. And she said, you should give Elizabeth a call. So we started to accrue these customers, and it got to the point that there was other shipments then in places that we couldn't handle, that we didn't have our trucks in. And so Kenny and I talked about it in 2017. We decided to make the leap, and we started our freight brokerage. So that was
I don't want to pass this up, because I think you made you put a point there. I think it is so important, because I hear a lot of people go, I should get my brokerage. For one, a couple of things. Yes. You're taking direct freight as a carrier with a customer without a brokerage.
Yes.
Many people owner-operators don't realize that they could do that. Could you talk a little bit about that? So me, I just got one truck, and I do have direct shippers, but can you tell a carrier that's just maybe got one truck or a small fleet how they can go about working directly with the customer?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, it is really important as a carrier, as any business owner, we should always be marketing our business. No matter who we're talking to, everyone we come across should know what we do. And it really helps, because someday someone's going to need something moved, or they're going to have a neighbor that needs something moved, or a boss. And so they can then think of you and reach out to you when they need that shipment moved. So I think that there's a lot of ways that carriers can be marketing themselves. And, it's just as simple as, joining things like chambers of commerce, and, even the old fashioned way of going door to door. And there really is a perk when you are a carrier and the actual driver going in to meet a shipper or receiver, and you're talking to them about offering them service, because you are really 100% going to be that service provider, and they're going to have a face with the name of who actually is going to be dealing with their freight. And so you might not have an easy of a time getting into a place like Walmart or Costco, something like that, where they're doing these huge volume shipments. But those smaller mom and pop or smaller, more specialized freight, they're going to look at you and they're going to see the value there. So there's definitely opportunities.
I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of social media, and they'll say, well, you can't get direct shippers if you've only got one truck. What would you say to that, Elizabeth?
That's baloney. That's total baloney. You can definitely, Kenny and I only had one truck, and sometimes it comes down to just being in the right place at the right time. But to be in the right place at the right time, you've got to be visible, and you've got to make sure that people know that you're available to do work. So.
Okay, I love some things you said. I love telling everybody that I'm a trucker. Everybody I meet knows a trucker.
Yes.
I own a trucking company. So don't miss that, people. That's a great tip right there. It's so valuable. You just run into people, give you referrals that just wouldn't have even thought to give a referral. That I didn't even know you'd interested in a new, additional customers. My brother has a warehouse over there, so talk it up. Love that. Great advice. I have another question about really practically, how does it, when I started, I had been booking all my freight through brokers. which many new
Yes.
carriers do that. And then I started venturing out thinking, I think I'm going to just go ahead and get my own direct shippers. And I do have some, but, I had a process about that. But one of the things that made me most nervous is like checking their credit. Like, what's that
Oh, yeah.
procedure like? With brokers, I just run it through my factoring company, and it's real easy for me to check a credit of a broker. And, how would I go about doing that as with a direct customer? What would you say?
That really is a challenge. And I don't know that I have all of the answers on that, unfortunately, especially in this economy right now, because there's a lot of businesses that are struggling, maybe even behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I think that the wisest thing that you can do, when you're getting set up with a new customer, is start off small and set your payment terms. Don't be afraid to ask for payment up front or COD. Meaning cash on demand. Don't be afraid to ask for payment immediately or upfront, because there's a lot of small shippers and receivers that will offer that to you. And if nothing else, maybe set the terms at 15 days, and that can help you get a better handle on, if they are getting behind, sooner. So I think that's
the thing I think people don't realize is that, on the shipper side, they're used to people asking for their credit.
Yes.
That you're going to spend a lot of money on fuel. You're going to have to pay your driver. And so they're expecting, that's a very normal part of their, business, whether they're signing up for a new brokerage to run their freight or they're signing up with the carrier directly. It's a very common practice to ask to see, a credit history and ask for referrals of, so I'm always say, just ask them you can do a credit check. And
yes. There are some resources with that, and it's slipping my mind right now, but there is a big resource where you can check credit on basically any business. I don't know that it's always free, but you can also check on things like Google. And, sometimes factoring companies will have these shippers in there if someone else has factored their freight. But really just do a little bit of research, and, if you are actually showing up there at the shipper or receiver, keep an eye out on things. How do things look like they're going? Are the employees looking relaxed, or are they stressed? You'll hear things if you're in and out. So
yes. And Google, even just a Google search in itself, because people are going to write reviews.
Yes. If they're not getting paid 100%, you're going to see reviews there on Google. So
that's great. Okay, so now tell me, you said you transitioned into the brokerage because you were getting more customers basically than your own carrier could handle. So can you tell us about transferring into that, and when did you move from the truck to really focusing full time on the brokerage? Could you tell us a little bit about that transition?
Sure. So in 2017, we started the brokerage, and I guess if we can backtrack just slightly, in 2015, Kenny and I had started to bring on our first owner operators, meaning that we brought on some other drivers who had their own truck, but we did this the right way. We added them onto our insurance policy, our auto liability and our cargo insurance. Our company name was on the door. We were responsible for safety. They were part of our drug consortium. So we added on these owner operators. And so I would say Kenny and I were still driving in the truck 2017, but it was probably 2019, 2020 when we started to get out of the truck more completely. So even in 2017, even though we'd started the brokerage, it was very slow. It might be 1 or 2 loads a month, to be honest. It was definitely a challenge in the beginning starting the brokerage. I remember, we decided not to factor from the get-go with our brokerage. And I remember there were so many times that I would find the right carrier for the load, I thought, and they would say, well, my factoring company is not going to approve you. And, you need to be able to have money set aside then to either do like a 50% up front and 50% on delivery, or some other sort of payment arrangement. I remember one time, though, in the beginning where I had this small load. I think it was like a short little partial going just across town, and I don't know what it was. It was a couple $100. And I said to the carrier, I said, listen, I'd like to work with you on this. I will pay you up front. I said, just show up there to the shipper. I will pay you. I'll give you an EFS check. And then, I trust that you're going to pick up the load and handle the load for me, and they decided, no, I'm not going to do it. I said, I don't know what to do. So there was definitely, that was probably the first 2 years of the brokerage. There was a lot of struggles with that. And I had to work very diligently to make sure that I paid my carriers on time. So it was a lot of really being on top of things to make sure we build our credit in the beginning. And fortunately, when we started out,
that's the biggest challenge. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you say that that's the biggest challenge in starting a brokerage because you don't have established credit, and so the carriers don't? I mean, I know I wouldn't run with the new brokerage that didn't have established credit, because I'm like, I'm gonna spend all that money on fuel, and I'm gonna spend all that time, and then you might pay me, you might not, or when. Would you say that not having established credit is the biggest challenge of starting a new brokerage, or something else?
That's a good question. I think not having established credit, and then also cash flow can be a big issue that small brokerages might have when they're starting up. Both of those, I think in the market that we're in now, a brokerage starting up might have a little bit more of an advantage because there's less loads than there have been in the past. But when the tables flip, which they will, again, it'll definitely be more in the carrier's favor, and a newer brokerage is going to have a heck of a time trying to get someone to take their shipments. So
yeah. I think that's the other thing. I hear a lot of people going, I'm just going to start a brokerage, and all I got to do is buy my bond, and the bond is actually not that expensive.
No, it's not.
You have to have $75,000, and depending on your credit, that you have your personal credit, it's really not that expensive to do it.
No,
so do that. Get your website. Get a TMS system set up, and everybody thinks that's it. I could start. Some booking my own freight. So what I love about your journey and the way you did, I think it's so smart, is you had more customers than your own personal trucks could handle. And that was the time where you started to make that transition, because you weren't starting the brokerage with needing to go for customers.
Correct.
You were already having customer relationships started. And I think that's so smart. And I think many people don't do it that way. So I've heard Kenny say that before. When do I know it's time to start a brokerage? And you'll say, well, when you have more freight than your own trucks can handle, that's the time where you want to branch out. And that's it, like getting new customers, Elizabeth. Everybody acts like that's
well, it's not as easy as most of us, as most people might think. And that's probably the reason most carriers don't have a lot of their own direct freight. It takes a lot of calls. Kenny and I actually at one point had hired someone that we had known. He worked with a different brokerage, and we hired him on salary just to do outbound calls to try and bring in new customers. And we paid him for an entire year, and he did not bring in anyone at all. Yeah. So I don't know if it was his methodology that, just wasn't working, but it's really not that easy. It comes to acquire someone who wants you to handle their shipping. It really comes to being at the right place at the right time, and you have something that solves their problem, and a lot of times, as business owners, unless there is an issue, unless they're not happy with what's happening with their current service provider, they don't want to have to switch.
Right.
They're comfortable with the status quo, and, unless they're unhappy with the price or the service, or, something major has happened. So, sometimes it means following up for a couple years until someone might be ready to switch.
Okay, listen, everybody. Did you hear what she just said? The time that it takes of so much wooing and wooing and wooing, trying to really build that relationship and keep putting your name and your face in front of that customer. It takes so many times of calling and building those in. And then the market is so fragile right now. The rates are so competitive that shippers, their phones are blowing up all day with people saying, I could beat their rate. Give me a shot. Just give me loads. And, they're trying to just get the freight as what they can. And, carriers, we're feeling that, we are. You're feeling it too, carrier side. So, but when the market is so competitive like this, then it's just, how low can we go? And, then try to provide good service, provide a good carrier when the rates are, skinny. That's a good.
And to be honest, I don't think, when you're looking for shippers that you want to work with, if the shipper tells you that really price is the only thing that matters to them, sometimes you have to listen to that. I actually met someone the other day. Kenny and I were at an event, and we were actually at an event for one of our other customers. We were making a delivery and a pickup for them. And I got to talking to someone else, and he was telling me about how he can ship a pallet anywhere in Florida, one pallet for $165. And I said, wow, that's pretty awesome. I'm not going to be able to beat that for sure.
Yeah.
And he let me know, that, really the only thing that matters to him is price. And I said, well, listen, I'm going to give you my card anyway. I'm not going to be able to beat or match that rate for one pallet to go to Miami from Tampa. That's just,
right.
I'm not going to be able to do that. But if you have something that goes wrong, or you need something last minute, or you need a full truckload, let me know. I'll be happy to help you, because even though you might not be able to meet their needs at that moment, you might be able to in the future. People's business models change. So,
okay, again, another great point. I love what you did there. And I even do this as a carrier when I'm talking to a broker, and I will start talking about a load. I do the exact same thing. This is gold right here, Elizabeth. I love what you said right there. So you're getting a no, and and they know this is not going to work right now, but you continued to talk about opportunities for the future. And I'll even do that where I'm like, well, this load obviously is not a good fit for me, and I'll do a very similar thing as a carrier, and I'll say, if something else comes up, keep me in mind. I'm not going to do that rate. I'm not going to, I have no desire to be the bottom of the barrel.
Yes, right.
But you're right that things do change. And then also when I'm talking to a broker, I will also say, I know they have multiple customers, so this one customer, they're running all this cheap freight, but they do have some more specialized things. And I'll even take that opportunity and I'll say, this one's not a good fit for me, but I'm a great carrier. I mean, my goal is to be your favorite carrier. Every load I do, that's my goal. So, and they love that, and they're having a conversation with me. So even hearing you say that on the broker side, I think that's just a great way to network. And every no that you get doesn't mean it's a never. So,
that's right. That's absolutely right. Yes.
Great tip there, Elizabeth. You have so much wisdom. I knew you were going to be sharing some gold with us. Okay.
I really think it benefited me a lot to start as a carrier before I became a broker, because when Kenny and I were in the truck, we had our own authority. Both he and I would book loads. We were both on the load boards. We were both negotiating loads. And so I really had a lot of background in exactly what I needed to do to dispatch our trucks and stay profitable. And that really helped me a lot as I started the brokerage. I did not do any specialized brokerage training. I don't think you necessarily need to do any specialized brokerage training, to be perfectly honest. If you have that background as a carrier, you know what it takes to get the job done. You know the questions that are going to come up. You know the pain points you've had as a driver of, someone sends you in there and the appointment time, they said the appointment time was X, but it's actually Y. And, now you're sitting there for, you've missed your appointment or something, so I think that there's a lot of benefit to starting off as a carrier first.
Well, and you all day you're talking to your competition, and as a carrier what things that they're not even asking the right questions sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you know that's happening for the shipper as well, and you get a really a good idea how you can improve on that.
Yes. Yeah.
One of my favorite things that I've told you this story before, but Elizabeth and I she called and offered me a load for my truck, and it was in Texas, but I was a little bit far. And I loved this conversation I had with her. I thought, I wish every broker could talk just this frankly and honestly. You offered me this load and I gave you my rate. I had a big Ted head. So the rate was just out of the market, and I even told you, I'm like, I know this rate's not going to, but this is what I would need to do it. And you said to me, and I just loved your honesty. And you just said, you paused for a minute, and I was like, and I was sitting there going, no. She's like, you're crazy, girl. I ain't paying you that. But I didn't know what you're gonna say, because you get blasted sometimes. So I was
Yes. Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, what is she gonna say? She said to me just so respectfully, and she said, Cindy, I know why you gave that rate. I understand that, but honestly, I could cover this load, cheaper than that with another carrier that's closer by, and the market's competitive right now. So I think we'll just pass on this one for now. And, it was just straight up. And I was like, I loved it. I was like, I love this woman. I'm like, why can't we all just talk honestly? You weren't going, oh,
Yes.
I don't have that much in it. That which you
Right.
care about. It's like, you're just like, just honestly, I could cover it cheaper. And if somebody that was closer, and I was like, we could just talk that honestly instead of all this, crazy lines we feed each other.
Yes. Well, I respect you so much, because I've called you so many times on loads. We've done so many loads together. And, if I asked you what you need for this, you're not afraid to give me the rate that you actually need. You're not afraid to give me an offer. Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll match up on it, right. But you're not afraid to quote something. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many carriers I've talked to, and they just won't give me a number. They're
tell me about that. What is happening when they don't give you a number? What do you think is
That's a really good question. So I can answer that, because I've been on the carrier side as well of that. And I know that I've called different freight brokers before, especially some of the bigger ones where they have young people that are answering the phones and are disrespectful, and they will yell at you if you give them a number that they don't like. And I find that to be ridiculous, because really, this is still business, and if you tell me you need $1,000 on this, and because of X, Y, and Z, then that's what you need. And hopefully we can work together and work something out on that. But if we can't, then you're just not the right truck for this particular load. And that's okay too. And I think sometimes when carriers get put on the spot and asked for a number, they just freeze. They're not used to actually quoting something. They're so used to brokers just telling them, this is what the rate is, and they're going to say yes or no. And they don't realize that there is a negotiation involved. It doesn't always mean that you're going to get 100% your way in the negotiation, but there's definitely different aspects that you can discuss. And this is one of the benefits for an actual driver, like a one truck owner operator like yourself, and like a lot of drivers out there. It's so important for them to be negotiating their own rates and not relying on dispatchers to be the ones calling and booking the loads. I will 100% give a little extra money to a one truck owner operator driver who is booking their own load over some dispatcher who has called in. They don't know the details of the truck. I've had dispatchers before book the truck, and I call the carrier, on the number on FMCSA, and that carrier says, I'm not going to do that, so that they waste my time. So when there's people like you that call and do that, it's fantastic. And I feel like I went off on a tangent there.
No, it's good information. Okay. Cause I think a lot of people will say, I think there's some really great dispatchers out there. I personally never worked with one. I've always self-dispatched my own truck. I also have a background like you do. So that to me, I was like, I'm not going to do that. Nobody's going to represent my company. Nobody's going to come hard and say, wait, you can count on me. I know you're concerned. I know the timeline. This is where I'm at. I mean, I'm going to give that spiel. I'm going to run hard, and I'm going to ask for all the money, and I'm going to ask for, what I need. And this is what you need. I hear you. You're talking to the driver. So I'm going to be there. So I see how that works. I know how that benefits me personally. So I wouldn't do that. But so you've had problems. Like, what if you have, you're driving? What would you say? Carriers are driving and they're losing time because they can't be constantly looking for loads where they're driving. What would you say to that reason for that person that's never self-dispatched their truck? What would you say you're a carrier. You knew how to do it. So
I think if you're going to be dispatching yourself, I think it's important to work on pre-planning your week, and don't just deliver a load and then look for your next load. It's a great idea to pre-plan and be looking ahead, and make sure you're establishing relationships with brokerages. some of the smaller ones like myself, but also some of the bigger ones like C.H. Robinson or Coyote or Landstar or even TQL. When you start to have a rep at one of those and someone that knows you, they can also be looking for stuff that might go well on your truck, even when you are driving, and they can offer things to you. So that's a good tip, but also just kind of plan your week and plan your day. When you're getting loaded and unloaded, you normally have a little bit of downtime there where you can take a look at the load board and see what's out there. On your 30-minute break, check that out. And I think some place where carriers fall short often is posting their truck. And in this market, especially 100%, you need to have your truck posted all of the time. As soon as you book your next load and you know where you're going to be available next, post your truck. They're in this market.
Say that. Tell us why you say that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's a couple reasons, and I'll give an example that you were a part of, actually.
The story.
So, in this market where freight brokers are not struggling to find trucks as much, it is super important for them to be able to go onto DAT load board or whatever load board you're using and be able to see, okay, well, this carrier has a posted truck there. They can look up your MC number, see your safety score, see you don't have any freight guard reports, and say, okay, I'm going to call them. Instead of having to post their load and deal with the hundreds of incoming phone calls that they can hardly even catch their breath in between, it's so much nicer to be able to pick and choose who you're going to call and try and work something out with. It also puts a little bit more control in your hand as the carrier, though, as well, because you know that the broker has hand selected you, picked you out and said, I'd like to work with this carrier. Yes. Yeah. So they've already kind of looked you up a little bit, most likely, before they've called you. So you do have a little bit of an advantage there, so don't be afraid to, even if you can't, let's say you're driving when someone calls you, don't be afraid to say, hey, I see your number that came in. Let me get your extension. Let me look this up and I'll call you back in just a few minutes with a number. And, it's not terrible to do that, so.
I love that what you're saying so much, because I find when a broker calls me and they've seen my posted truck,
yes,
the conversation is so slow. Well, for one, they're super respectful.
Yes.
It is a whole different thing. They're like, hey, I saw you posted your truck and how are you doing today? And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm doing great. How are you doing? And
yes.
It's this slow, casual pouring out of the details. And let me tell you what I've got and why I want you to look at this. And I see you're ready to go into this area. And that the conversation is so less aggressive.
Yes.
It's such a...
Yes. Oh, you hit the nail on the head. And I'm really glad you said that, because it's a totally different energy. Yeah. If you and I were even in that position, because if I post my load, I'm stressed. I'm getting a lot of phone calls. Yep. And a lot of those phone calls are, unfortunately, double broker guys who are trying to take my load and trick me into giving them the shipment, and then so they can steal my freight. So it's very stressful for me to try and weed through everyone. And, I have seconds to get through a phone call to determine, is this someone I even want to work with, versus someone calls you and they can actually have a conversation with you. And it's so important. And the example I wanted to give was that one time this past summer in Chicago, and I had a truck driver. I don't know how this happened, but he lost his key, and he called me at 4:00 in the morning, and he said, I'm not going to make the 8:00 pickup. And I said, oh my goodness. So, we had an 8:00 pickup in Chicago or something like that. And, I had just a couple hours, and it's the middle of the night, 4:00 in the morning. So how am I going to find a truck? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I looked on DAT and I could not believe, I looked for available trucks. I could not believe it. Here is Cindy with Achieve Trucking is posted there. And I've said, this can't be right. This can't be Cindy. That's not normally her area. Right. And I looked and it was Cindy. And I thought, oh my goodness. I'm like, this is going to be amazing if she's available. And I probably waited an hour because I didn't want to wake you up at 4:00 in the morning. Yeah. And I called you and, you helped me out with the shipment, and I paid you more than I was going to pay the other carrier. I think I paid you excellent for that market. And, but I was so happy to see a carrier that I knew and trusted that I could rely on to get the job done right. And I think most brokers probably feel like that when they're looking for something more than just the cheapest truck, which we are oftentimes. It's not always just the money, really.
Yeah. Okay, I have a lot I want to talk to you about. We're going to take a little commercial break, but you shared some fantastic information, and I still have a list of questions that I want to go through because you just have so much information that you have in that beautiful brain of yours, and I'm so grateful. So we're going to cut to commercial, but we're going to be right back. If y'all have any questions, we got a broker in the hot seat here. So if there's anything you wanted to know about the other side, this is the time to ask. And she's an experienced carrier with the fleet of 10 trucks. So she's run all kinds of freight. And so if you guys have questions, pop those in. We're going to go to commercial, but we'll be right back. Well, Elizabeth, okay, you have my brain going in a million different directions. I want to talk a little bit about double brokering. Okay, sure. I know for me as a carrier, I noticed that they're really being careful when they book a load with me. There's a lot of things that are happening. Can you tell us a little bit? Maybe there's a new owner operator out there, or maybe somebody even thinking about becoming an owner operator in the future, or maybe even open a brokerage. Can you tell what's happening in the market today about double brokering and how that impacts all of us? And then what you as a broker are doing to prevent that fraud, basically. Can you give us a little summary if somebody's not really familiar with that side of the...
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're seeing happen now is there are a lot of shell carriers. And what I mean by shell carriers is it's someone who has opened up a carrier and maybe they have one truck on their policy and then they are accepting freight from a legitimate broker. And then with their shell carrier, they get the load information, they have the rate confirmation, and they have that load secured. They then hand that load off to maybe a sister brokerage company of theirs, which is a scam brokerage company. They do have a legitimate MC number, but usually they're set up that they don't care to pay any carriers, so that brokerage then will post the load or call trucks and get that load moved with another legitimate carrier who doesn't realize that this has been double brokered. Did that explain that part of it?
Very helpful.
Right? Okay.
Very helpful.
So
what are you as a broker doing to prevent that from happening? So we as carriers can understand how to overcome,
sure, what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that I do now is when I am booking a new load, and if I'm having to take incoming phone calls, or if I am looking to work with someone new, I have Carrier 411 up, and I use that every single day. I'm checking every new carrier in there. I'm checking to see if they have any freight guard reports, meaning that someone might have reported them for double brokering. I think there is an unfortunate thing with Carrier 411 that sometimes they've gotten a bad rap because brokers will threaten to file a freight guard report for this or that. And it's, a lot of times it's something that, it stinks, something went wrong, but, it's not the end of the world. And there are brokerages like me that will look past some things like that. If I ask you about it and you have a good explanation, and it wasn't, yesterday, a lot of times we can move past it and we can still work together. I'm not against that. But if you've been reported for double brokering, we're not working together. So,
right.
So that's probably my first check. We have a couple other resources that we use. One of the other things that I'm always doing is calling the number that's listed on FMCSA for that carrier to confirm that I'm booking the load with who I think I'm booking it with. A little side note with that, there is something that had happened with FMCSA was allowing carriers to be able to change their address and their phone number by sending in a copy of their driver's license. And what was happening with that is some carriers were actually having their identity stolen, and their phone number and address was changed by sending in a picture of their driver's license to one of these scam brokerages. So I would really hesitate to send a copy of your driver's license, your CDL, to anybody at this point.
Okay, everybody get that? It's to prevent somebody else from impersonating your company and your MC. So
yes,
it's a big scam out there. So
there's other ways that you can still verify who you are, and maybe that means, having your insurance agent vouch for you, and so, there's just different things you can do. I would always be ready to send pictures of your truck, your company name.
Tell us why they're asking that. Just in case they're not put it together. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, even beyond just the double brokering, there are a lot of companies out there who might only insure 1 or 2 trucks, and then they hire on what they call owner operators. And these owner operators are not on their insurance policy. They're not on their cargo. They're not on their liability insurance, and they're sending them in to pick up freight. And it really opens myself as a broker and my customer up to a lot of risk, because that truck might not be properly insured. I haven't vetted them. And so as a brokerage, I want to see the actual truck that you're going to be sending in there to the shipper to pick up the load. If there's going to be any changes in the company name, I need to know, from the get-go. If you're dispatching for someone else, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but you need to give me the DOT number of the truck that's going to actually be doing the shipment. And that's who I need the insurance for. That's who I need to be able to check out.
Okay, and tell me another, explain to carriers this, because I know that there's new owner operators that are hearing you don't have any inspections on your truck. Why is a broker saying that to a carrier, and what is that proving if I have an inspection? What is exactly are they looking for when you say you want to see a inspection on there?
That's a really good question. So the reason that brokers are looking for that is they're making it, and especially because the market is so lean for carriers right now, it's just a black and white way for brokers to filter out carriers that don't have any actual trucks. And so it filters them out, but it also does filter out some of the good carriers that are newer that just don't have any inspections yet. And so that's unfortunate. There are ways to overcome that. And that really comes into, I think, when you are calling on a load and you're going to be dispatching yourself, if you really represent that this is your company.
Yeah. And
a lot of times you can talk to a freight broker and be able to explain to them what the situation is. And through other documentation, such as showing pictures of the truck, it might even require like a FaceTime call. I worked with a carrier recently that, I just really wasn't sure, and he didn't have any inspections, but he seemed like a good guy. And so I said, listen, we're going to do a FaceTime call. I need you to do a walk around the truck with me. I want to see the company name on the side. And so, it really, there are brokers out there that are willing to go that extra effort. If you sell yourself, if you, help them understand that, where you're at, you're trying to make a living here, you're trying to get your business established, and you're a good carrier and you're going to take good care of their freight, we will go above and beyond.
Okay, I want to park here just for a minute because I don't want everybody to miss this. So the reason that they need to see inspection is because the brokers are trying to rule out that you're not one of those shell carriers that's going to send their freight off. They want to make sure you're a real trucking company that's not going to double broker their freight. So that's the main thing. And then also I loved what you shared as a way to overcome. It's an objection, in sales, there's an objection and you overcome that objection, so understanding why you're asking is teaching the carriers how to respond to that quest. They're really just needing to be verified that you are an actual broker, you're an actual carrier with a legitimate truck. Double brokering is a real scam out there that's costing the industry thousands and thousands of dollars. So if we can just sit back instead of getting frustrated and say, they needed, I just hung up. They said I needed an inspection, but you kept talking. And that's for whatever the objection is. We need to keep doing that. Well, why do you need that? What can I do to overcome that? And again, another feature and a benefit of being the actual one calling, because you're saying, this is my company. I'm brand new. I'm not brand new, but when I was doing all this, and it wasn't even a big a deal as it is now. But I was saying, I'm going to do a great job for you. I know you're nervous. I know I don't have a proven record, but I want to grow my business, and I'm going to work harder than anybody else you're going to put on this load. And, so I was just going at it hard. I was saying, give me a shot, put me in there. But understanding why they're asking for that inspection. How else can I prove it to you? Let me go on FaceTime. Let's take a picture of my truck. What can I do to overcome that concern? Because I want to work with you. I want to build a relationship. So, coming back over those things. So I love it that you shared that. That was very helpful information. Anything you want to add about double brokering?
There's two other points I want to make about this. I think that carriers can also do a better job of really taking a close look at the paperwork that they're given, and catching some of this stuff before they deliver the freight. So whenever you're given a bill of lading, it's really your responsibility as a carrier, number one, to make sure everything matches. Make sure the date matches. Make sure the shipper and the receiver matches what was on your rate confirmation. Make sure, this is super important. Make sure the quantity of the freight that they put on your truck matches what you actually have. Heaven forbid you get there to the receiver and they say, well, it says that they loaded 4 pallets on here and you only have 2. What are you going to do? You signed for that you received for. Check the name on, the third party bill to information there. Sometimes that can be a clue. And I've talked to a lot of newer carriers who were picking up and delivering freight to places that did not match the bill of lading and did not match the rate confirmation. And I'm finding this out after the fact because these are carriers that I've been trying to mentor a little bit as we work together a few times, and I want to see them succeed, and they haven't gotten paid for this. And as I look back through their paperwork then, and we can take a look at that, and things don't match. So when things don't match, you need to stop and you need to take another look at it. And it might even mean that you need to ask the shipper, and say, what's going on with this here? Is this the freight brokerage that you're working with? And I just want to make sure that this is the location it's supposed to go to. Now, obviously, if it's a blind shipment, that might not be feasible, but take a moment to really look into things. Don't be so fast to just sign the paperwork and run. And the other point I want to make about double brokering is there's a lot of carriers that think that it's just a broker problem, and it's not. One of the big factors that is driving down rates, especially if it's in the case that the shipper might still be paying the same rate, but the broker's rate seems to have dropped to the carrier, it's because so many brokers have ended up double paying for loads, meaning they paid the scam carrier and they've paid the legitimate carrier that actually did the load. And so if you think about that, like let's say you paid $1,000 for this load, but you had to pay it twice now. I guarantee the broker did not have $2,000 in that load to begin with. Yeah. So they're at a deficit. And so they're a little bit more hesitant, I'm sure, in some cases, about throwing out bigger numbers because they might have to double pay if things don't check out. So.
Yeah. Okay, Elizabeth, I want to first jump on here, talk a little bit about She Trucking. One of the things I love about the She Trucking Foundation is we are bringing on quality people like Elizabeth Long, who's dropping all of this valuable information to help empower and equip you to do the things that you want to do. Our goal is to help you to thrive in the industry and bringing on great guests. So if you are not a part of the She Trucking Foundation, I encourage you to join and is to sign up so you don't miss out on all these opportunities. She Trucking has a Facebook group, Enjoyjng Life OTR also has a Facebook group. So join in both of these communities so you can get exposure and, get to learn and thrive in the industry from people like Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, I want to thank you for sharing all those things. So I think you dropped so much great information. One of the things too I want to share, my show is Enjoyjng Life OTR. So I can't, have you take off on me and not tell me a little bit about what it was like team driving with your husband. So tell me a little bit about that. And I know you guys really took advantage of the opportunity to travel, and many of us don't ever get out of the truck. I mean, I do. I care a lot about that. But
Yes.
you've done some great adventures. We have just a few more minutes before we have to shut up the show. But could you just tell us a little bit about how you and Kenny team drive, how you made it take advantage of the opportunity to travel while you guys were out there?
Oh, definitely. Kenny and I had such a great time going over the road together. And I think really, because I came into this as I'd never been a company driver, so I'd never had that experience. But I thought, man, I mean, I always loved to travel. And I thought, this is a way for us to get paid to travel and see the country.
Right.
And so, we started doing that in 2012. And when we started out, I think we had inflatable stand-up paddle boards on the truck with us and bicycles. And so we were like well equipped to go do, anything, any kind of adventure. I had hammocks in on the top bunk, and, we were set. So, a couple of the things that we've done that have just been spectacular is, we've been to Niagara Falls, and, I found a casino that we could park that was close to the falls. We could park at the casino, and we walked to the falls and went exploring there. We went to downtown St. Louis one time, and, we've never been afraid to just get out and go and walk. And so I found this little truck stop. It was kind of close to downtown, but I think it was, 5 miles from downtown. And we said, all right, well, we're going to walk it. We did it. And so we walked into downtown and explored all day. And I think we did 15 miles that day, but
wow.
we had a great time. We went to this, we went to the city museum, which was this jungle gym type thing for adults, and played all day there. We had, I guess, one of our longest trips that we did, which was really neat, is we went out to the state of Oregon. We were kind of near Portland. I don't remember exactly which truck stop it was. I think it was TA Portland South, probably. And so it wasn't anything special. But I looked at the hotels in the area, and all the hotels were about $200 a night. And I said, that's kind of expensive. We have a perfectly good truck right here. And so we slept in the truck, and we showered at the truck stop every day. And then we spent our money on a rental car and went exploring and had great dinners out. And I think we were honestly there for about a week, maybe even 10 days. But we did a lot of hiking up there, and just, really enjoyed some downtime after we delivered our load up there. And, it's pretty awesome that we can have everything we need in the truck with us. We have all of our clothes, we have food, we can cook, it's comfortable. And so as long as you're there at a truck stop and you can take a shower, you could stay there indefinitely and kind of go explore. And I don't know, there's so many neat opportunities. And to think it would have cost us, $1,400 a night, or $1,400 for that week, if we were there in hotels, and we got to just stay there for free. So that was pretty neat. We've gone and seen the Grand Canyon, which I don't know that this was entirely okay for us to do, but we were going. So I don't necessarily recommend this. You could do this at your own risk. But we were going past the Grand Canyon at night, and I said, well, when are we going to be out here again? We were ahead of schedule on our load because we'd already done some team driving, and this was a solo load. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to pull into where the tour buses were. There was no one there to stop me. And I said, I'm going to park there. And we watched the sun come up over the Grand Canyon in the morning. And it was really neat. It was so cool. So
I love that when you said too that you were team driving, but you would take a load that was booked for they had the time frame of a solo driver, and y'all took it as a team load, and then you freed up some time to have a little extra cushion because you guys were driving around the clock to get it, so you freed up some time in the weekend or whenever.
Definitely. Yeah, that was definitely something that we worked on doing. It's just, hey, let's team where we can, so that way we can have some downtime where we want it. And that was also, it was a slightly different market there in 2012. But I also really enjoyed, I'd look at the load board and I'd see, well, where do we want to go? and sometimes book loads to take us to areas that we'd never been to before.
Yes.
And so sometimes, it might not be the best paying load, but maybe it takes you to some place that you've never been before. And if you think about, well, I could buy a plane ticket and rent a hotel and do all these other things, or maybe I take a load there and take a couple of days off and explore and, I have my fuel covered and have a place to stay. So
great. I think that's even great for company drivers to do that. Team,
yes.
the company driver just runs them around the clock, and it's understandable. But I think even a way that they could work with their dispatcher and go, okay, we need to have a little downtime. Just a load that's a single load, we're going to run it fast. So we have free up a little bit of time so we could, have some beach time, while we're there. So communicating those desires to, and, Grant, you're not going to do that every time. Team drivers, they're going to, company driver, they're going to run them. They want to keep those wheels going. So anyway, that's great. I appreciate you, Elizabeth. I want to take just a minute before we wrap up, and I want to thank our sponsors, because we have so many great sponsors in She Trucking, and they allow us to be able to do the things that we do. They're supporting the things that we passionate about, and equipping, empowering people to come into the industry and really thrive in the freight transportation industry. So GLCS, this is a fabulous company that helps trucking and logistic companies achieve their growth by taking their overcoming their technology challenges. So doing so much for the industry. So if you're a trucking or logistics company, please check them out. So many great resources available, and really helping companies to thrive. Another one is True TMS, My Guardian Doc. I really love both of these companies. The True TMS is a transportation management system that's actually designed from the ground up with the small carrier in mind. So if you have a small fleet, 1 or 2 trucks, or a handful of trucks, this is a great company for you to check out. They have a free trial that you can check out. So that's a great opportunity to give them out, just to play around and see all the tools that they provide. But they are designed for the smaller fleet. The other sponsor I want to mention is My Guardian Doc. For drivers, we're on the road, and, I've been sick this last couple of weeks, and I thought, I can't get to my doctor, but My Guardian Doc, they have a small monthly subscription, and you're able to have a virtual counselor with a doctor. They're able to diagnose and write prescriptions for you while you're on the road. Or maybe you're a broker or dispatcher, and you're in an office and you don't have time to get into the doctor. So this is a great opportunity for somebody at a very low monthly cost to be able to get medical care while we're on the road. It really fits the lifestyle of a trucker. I mean, it's so brilliant, really. So grateful for these sponsors that help us to continue to do the things that we do. Legal Shields is another one of our sponsors I really like. Sometimes in trucking, we come up against challenges, and, we wish we had an attorney. They offer a small monthly fee, and then you have access to a legal attorney that can look at contracts or help you fight a ticket that you got on your CDL. And I mean, so much more. So even if you want to do a will, or, they have so many resources. So check them out too. Legal Shield is a wonderful sponsor, offering great products that are really helpful for our community. So I want to give them a shout out. And Elizabeth, I just have to say thank you so much. I could have you on again. I think I could talk with you for another hour, because you have so much wisdom. And maybe next time we'll get Kenny on here too, because you guys just have just so much that we could take away and learn. I thank you for taking the time to do this, because
absolutely. I really enjoyed it, and I do hope you have me back on here. I would love to do that.
Yeah, so grateful for you. And you guys check it out. You guys be sharing this out with other people, and because Elizabeth dropped some great gems here, whether you're a carrier, a company driver, or you're thinking about starting a brokerage. So she's got some great information, and we're so grateful that you came on. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Our show is Enjoying Life OTR, so we always want to hear about the ways that you are enjoying life on the road, and I think that comes with work-life balance. So you've given us some great information that'll help us continue to thrive in our business. And I love your stories about how y'all travel and take advantage of the opportunity. So thanks so much for coming on. Elizabeth, and your link is on the show, patriotstartrucks.com. Is that the brokerage website?
That's actually for both. But you can find us on there. We're also on Facebook, Patriot Star, and feel free to reach out. And I always love to connect with great carriers and build relationships. And, I hope that, when I work with carriers, I want to see them grow their business with me so that way we can both continue to be successful and make money together. So
yeah, I love that you're into partnerships, and you're such a blessing. And I'm just so grateful to have met you and get to work with you and Kenny regularly. So it's so great. You guys be sure to check out all of the ways that you can find She Trucking and Enjoying Life OTR. We're all over social media. We're on LinkedIn, we're at YouTube, Facebook groups, Facebook Lives all the time. We're on Instagram. So many ways for you to connect with us, and we look forward to seeing y'all next time. Thanks again, Elizabeth. I sure appreciate you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Cindy.
Have a good evening.